Hi everyone, welcome back to Waterhouse Forde for another video. Now this week what we're going to do, we're going to reinstall the exhaust and inlet manifold. It's a combined manifold. I've spent some time cleaning it up. We've got a couple of studs to put in, and then we can put the get the gaskets and put it on. It's reasonably straightforward, and it won't. I don't think it's going to be a particularly long video, so hopefully just a quick short one for this week. Hope that you enjoy it, and yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, so we're over here at the vase again. We've got the manifold in the vase. As I said, we spent a little bit of time cleaning up these gasket faces, also the main gasket face, which is at the back here, which you'll see in a second. But you'll notice we've got one stud missing here, which is for the exhaust, and then this is where the carburetor gets mounted, and I've actually removed these studs. Now, the reason this one is missing is because I tried to take these out so that I could clean this face really well. Unfortunately, in doing that, I actually broke that stud off, so what I've landed up having to do is drilling that out, retapping it, and I've made a new stud, which basically just got the right diameter bolt, and cut a 3/4 thread on either side. So that will obviously run in there, no problem. We'll get that Loctited in there. So obviously, having broken that one, I just abandoned trying to remove this one. Luckily, this one's threads were in better shape than the one that I broke off here. That's why I was trying to get it out as well, is because I wanted to replace it, because its threads were not great. This one is actually still fine, so I decided not to chance my luck and just to leave that one in. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to Loctite this one in. We're then going to Loctite these two in, and then we can move over to the tractor and actually get this thing installed. So just quickly, got a little bit of Loctite here. We're going to pop a bit on these threads. Doesn't need a huge amount. That should do. There we go. I'll get that turned in there. And then what I'm going to do is take two nuts. Oh, that wasn't very clever. what I'm going to do is take 2 nuts and just run those down on there. And then lock them together. Hopefully you can see all this. Now what we want to do is lock these 2 nuts onto each other and then just use the top one to tighten that down in the manifold. There we go. Now without putting any pressure on the stud, we can loosen the nuts. And then we just clean up the Loctite that's squeezed out at the base here. We don't want that drying and interfering with the gasket that we're going to put on here in a minute. Okay, so there we go. So that's that one in. We'll quickly do these 2, and then we'll go ahead and put the elbow on here that the exhaust mounts to. Okay, now for these studs they've got a different thread on each side. One side's a coarse thread and one side's a fine thread. The coarse thread goes into the manifold, and the fine thread is for the nuts that hold the carburetor on. Now I closed my Loctite and I didn't really need to because I'm still going to use it here. We'll just pop some Loctite on this one. And get that spun down. Same on the other one. And then we'll use the same method to lock these in place. Now all of these holes I've run a tap into them just to make sure that the threads are nice and clean, and then on the studs I've run a dye down over them as well for the same reason, to make sure that the threads are nice and clean. That's the quickest and easiest way to clean a thread. You can use a wire brush, and I often do just to get started, but inevitably you want to try and get a tap or a dye over the thread. Now that one is becoming a bit tight, so we'll just spin it down with the nuts first. There we go. That's interesting, that one. Seems to be a bit tight. Well, that's tightened the stud in anyway without having to do the 2 lock nuts, or locking the 2 nuts on. But let's do this one. And the same again. Now this time the stud is coming out, which we don't want. Don't know why that, I need to check that nut, there's something wrong with that. I'll come back. Okay, I've removed that stud again. Obviously the threads were not clean enough, so I thought I'd put the camera on while I quickly basically just redo that. So just run a tap down, a dye down the threads. And that just cleans out any rust, paint, whatever. And I've got this stud in a aluminium jaw vase so that it doesn't damage the threads down below, the lower threads. But basically that's I believe that's it. And in essence it's not really cutting the threads again, it is literally just cleaning them, so hopefully it's not too difficult. So there you can see the threads, so hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it doesn't want to focus on the stud, it's going to focus on my hand, hang on. There you go, I think you can see that now. Still focusing on my hand. Anyway, nice clean thread on there. We'll clean that up in a second, but before we do that, we'll just get the nuts. We'll do both of them while we're here. Just center them in the vase. This is, if you're interested, this is 5/16, obviously fine thread. So I'll just run that tap down, just to make sure. Yeah, that one's fine. So for whatever reason, on the stud it doesn't seem to have cleaned the thread. Or maybe I forgot to do it, I'm not certain now. I thought I had, but getting on a bit now. That one's a little bit more crunchy. There we go. Right, so let's try that again. We'll get the manifold back in the vase and we'll have another go. Okay, so here we go. Get some Loctite again. You'll notice that I cleaned the Loctite off this one already. I didn't want it drying whilst we were working on this one, so yeah, there we go. And hopefully now our nuts will go on nice and smoothly. Look at that, amazing. So again, we lock the nuts together, and then we use the top one to wind it down into the thread, which it now is, and then we can remove them. And that's it. So we'll get that cleaned up, and then we will move over to the tractor and basically get this mounted. Oh no, sorry, let's get the elbow on here. I think that will make sense whilst we've got this manifold in this position, because otherwise it'll be working upside down when it's on the tractor. Right, so I'll get set up for that and I'll come back. Okay, so what we're going to use, we have the Angler Agri-Parts top gasket set, which is A56350, and you can see that has the gaskets that we need for this part. So we're going to grab those out. Okay, that was a little more challenging than I thought it would be, but look, there's your two manifold gaskets where they join to the engine. We're going to use those in a minute. Here we've got a copper gasket that goes on here, and the elbow goes in. But just quickly to show you, we also have two gaskets, I believe they're the same, that fit on here where the carburetor would go. I'm not sure which one, whether the green one or the black one. I think the green one goes here, but we need to double check. We're obviously not going to use that right at this minute, but yeah, let's get this elbow on, and we'll get that locked down, and then we can actually move to putting this on the tractor. Now here we've got the elbow. You can see that I've cleaned up that face as well. There's nothing you need to put on here. Don't need any grease, nothing like that. Grease won't help at all. All that will happen is it'll end up burning off when you start the engine, so we're not going to bother. I've obviously got some new nuts and washers to go on here, as you can see. So we'll just quickly get those on, get that tightened up, and then we'll move to the tractor. Now, being an exhaust component, these bolts don't need to be massively tight. You just want to compress that copper gasket ever so slightly, but you don't want to over tighten anything here, because that will just make it more difficult to get it off again. And generally speaking, exhaust joints like these don't tend to leak. They're not the worst thing for leaking, if you see what I mean. So that's nice and tight. I'm going to just put these two nuts on. They, as I said, hold the carburetor on, but I'm just going to put them on there so I don't lose them. Yeah, that's going on lovely now. Right, we're ready to move over to the tractor. So I'll move the camera and everything, and we'll come back. Okay, so back at the engine. So obviously we've been keeping this nice and clean. A while back you would have seen our video where we installed all these studs. So you can look back on that if you're interested in that. But in essence, you can see it's relatively straightforward. These gaskets can only go one way. There's no left and right. This one will fit here, no problem. But you can see the shape of them. It's relatively straightforward. And there's no right or wrong way. As in, neither of these faces is the right, goes towards the engine or towards the manifold. But basically, that's really straightforward. Now, the only tricky thing here, so the heat shield needs to go on here, right? And you have these two basically extension bolts that go on. So they fit on. No, they don't. Interesting. Oh, there we go. So one side has the correct thread, and they go on here, and essentially they allow, or they are what the heat shield will eventually bolt to. So what we need to do is work out which studs line up with those, and it is these at the top here. So it's this one and this one. Okay, so when that is on, you can't see it on the camera, but basically I can see those sticking through here. Now, so the important part is to remember that when you come to putting the manifold on, that these two, they don't take normal nuts, they take these as nuts, if that makes sense. So yeah, we remember it's the two that are closest to these two head bolts, essentially. Okay, so let's get the manifold on. Again, you can see how I've cleaned up that face, nice and shiny. Want to keep it as level or as straight as possible, so that it makes a good seal on this gasket. But essentially, that just sits there. Now let's get a couple of washers. So we'll get our two extension studs on first. Now this is interesting because that is hitting the manifold. Something's not right. Okay, looks like that one's going to go on. We'll get a washer on that one. I'm going to move the camera so you can see what I'm seeing. So hopefully you can see this now. Hang on. So this one is going on fine. You can see it just needs to be tightened up. This one, however, doesn't seem to want to go on. It's hitting up against the manifold here. I can't imagine why. Basically, I can't get it to go on straight without because it basically just keeps hitting the manifold itself. Right, I need to work this out and I'll come back. Okay, I've kind of worked out what's going on. Number one, there was I have put a little chamfer on the edge of this nut, essentially. When feeling it, there seems to be a lot of burrs that were sort of sticking up, so I just put a mild chamfer on there. But the other thing is, what I've done, I've pulled the manifold right back, so it's a gap here, essentially. And now that nut can essentially turn within the little recess of the manifold itself, and that seems to be working. So yeah, I didn't know that. I've never experienced that before, but there you go. That's the trick. Now these are a completely different size, of course. I tell you what, let's get some of these other nuts on first. So we'll get this one done. I know you can't really see this one in the camera, but I'll just get that done so it's out of the way. So that's that one. I'll do this one. Again, new nuts. I looked for, I think they kind of like brass nuts for here, but I couldn't actually find any that were the right size. So I'm just going with these, what are they, sort of gold, not gold, nickel plated I think it is, or nickel passivated, something like that. Anyway, hopefully they will be good. Alright, so look, I'm not going to film all of this now, you don't need to see everything. But before I finish doing that, I've just remembered there's a breather pipe that needs to come in here, which connects to the top of the tapper cover, rocker cover. So I'm going to go get that quickly, and we'll put that on video, and then I think that'll probably be it, unless I come across anything else that I think will be of interest. So let me find that breather pipe and I'll come back. Okay, so as I said, there's this breather pipe that needs to go on here. Before we put that on, I just want to talk about the hole that it goes into. Now, this basically runs down into the intake down the bottom here. So it connects, well, it basically just drills straight through. Just to clean that out, make sure that it's clear. We want that to be completely clear. I'm just going to hold the jar underneath there and just spray some brake cleaner in there, and just let that drip for a bit. Okay. And then just take some compressed air and just clean that out. There we go. So that's now completely cleaned up, and we can bring that breather pipe in. Now, as I said, that goes, I've got to remember how to get this in here. Maybe I had to put it on before. Oh no, there we go. Okay, so that can go in there. Oh, that was turning freely. Hang on. Okay, I've just tidied up that nut a little bit so that it's a little bit freer. It's not perfectly free, but I think it's enough for us to get this in here. Okay, so essentially we've got to get that lined up. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that one out so that it doesn't interfere with us whilst we line this bottom one. We'll line the pipe up at the bottom. So okay, that's almost just about in. Now before we tighten it up completely, let's get the top in as well. Now that's not lining up 100%, but then the manifold isn't 100% in yet either, so maybe we need to give that a little. Of course, this may have got bent in all the moving and all the time that it's been off of the engine. So we may have to encourage it on So I think before I put that in, I'm going to get the manifold buttoned up so I know that that's exactly where it needs to be, and then just manipulate that in. And then I'm going to replace, this looks like it had a fiber washer, and of course there should be two. I may try, I think I've got some copper washers, and I might use a couple of copper washers there instead. But yeah, let me get the manifold buttoned up and then I'll come back. Okay, I've got the manifold now completely buttoned up. All the nuts are nice and tight. Managed to get these in okay. And yeah, we're now ready to put this breather pipe on. Now that the manifold is on, it's not difficult actually to get that to line up. And in fact, if you can you just basically put a bit of tension on it and there it is, it's 100% lined up. So I'm happy with that. I have, like I said, I've got some copper washers, and I'm going to use those. And hopefully they will seal nicely. This is not a high pressure joint, so it's not a big deal really. It's just to take any oil vapor that's in the top of the engine and basically inject it into the airstream of what the combustion stream essentially, just to burn that oil vapor off, to get rid of it. So yeah, it's a 7/8 nut, or bolt rather, banjo bolt, and there we go, that's now on. So the only thing left now to do is to tighten up this fitting at the bottom here, which by the way is a 7/16 by the looks of it, and we can just tighten that down, and there we go, our manifold is on. Obviously the carburetor comes in here, and the exhaust obviously sits on top here, and I'm thinking I'm missing something. Oh, of course the dynamo and everything goes in here, and there's also a tap that goes down the bottom here, brass tap for the water. So I might do a quick video on that next time. Again, if you go back and look at my videos, the previous videos, you'll see that we tried to reseat the brass tap previously. That didn't work. We tried to use a bit of Brasso to reseat it. That didn't work, and I ended up having to buy a new one. So it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar, and certainly in keeping with this particular era. So yeah, I might do another video on that one day. But look, I think that's it for today. Not a very difficult job, as you can see. Just need to troubleshoot a couple of bits along the way. The main problem really was that stud. Having got that, having broken that off whilst cleaning, it was obviously a little bit of an issue that needed to be dealt with, but not difficult to deal with. So that's done. That's all nice and buttoned up now. Mostly it's just cleaning, getting your gaskets in, and getting it buttoned up, and that's the job. Alright, let's leave it there for now. We'll catch you on the next video. Hope you all have a great week. Cheers for now.